Currently, I'm taking refuge in my dad's fishing cabin, attempting to process my next steps. I feel shattered and worthless. The anger I'm experiencing is fueled by a deep-seated rage. My entire life seems to have gone down the drain, and I don't have anyone to confide in. The one person I believed I could trust just turned on me and attempted to deceive me about everything. Right now, I'm frightened by 3 individuals, one of whom is myself. If the police aren't searching for me at this moment, I'm fortunate. If they are, I'll face that situation when I have no other choice. My job involves construction, specifically demolition. The team I work with frequently travels, and I had been away for 10 out of the 14 days I was supposed to be gone. Due to rain, which makes demolishing wet things challenging, and the weather forecast, I decided to take a flight back home until it was feasible to work again. The flight I boarded didn't arrive until midnight. Wanting to surprise my wife, I didn't inform her about my return. I drove for 45 minutes from the airport to our home. 8 years ago, my wife discovered a lovely piece of land far from other houses through her real estate work. 2 years later, I finished building our cherished house. We've been happy there ever since. With a 4-car garage, cars parked in front are unusual. The sight of an unfamiliar black SUV filled me with dread. I instantly knew. It's not like I had sensed any problems in our marriage. We hadn't argued. Our bed life was satisfying and frequent. But in that moment, I somehow knew what awaited me inside. If the car belonged to a relative visiting, she would have informed me. I held on to a glimmer of hope that it might belong to a female coworker who had a bit too much to drink during a visit and needed to sleep it off. However, that scenario was highly unlikely. I spent at least 15 minutes outside the house, contemplating my next moves. I parked my car very close to the SUV, leaving only about 6 inches of space between my driver's side and the SUV's. Whoever owned the SUV wouldn't be able to leave without my permission or breaking a window, since it was next to a retaining wall. I turned off my car and entered through the back door from the deck. I have a concealed carry permit for a .45. I had put on my holster before leaving the airport and driving home. I wasn't afraid for my life, but I was concerned about losing control of my emotions and causing harm to someone else. As I walked into the house, everything was silent. Initially, it seemed like no one was home. However, I noticed a meal for 2 on the table and a sink filled with dishes, indicating something was amiss. I calmly went down the hallway to our bedroom and slowly turned the doorknob. I gently pushed the door open and didn't hear any noise or movement. The room was completely dark. I went to the bathroom and turned on the light. When I turned back around, I saw my wife and a man I'd never seen before, both without clothes, on the bed. It was devastating. It felt like a heavy weight had been placed on my chest. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I knew crying wouldn't change anything. I took out my phone and started recording. I moved around the bed, capturing the scene in front of me. The realization that my marriage was over began to sink in. Despite my complete faithfulness, I understood that our property would be divided evenly. The house I had built with my own hands would have to be sold during the divorce asset division. The emotional pain of betrayal was more intense than anything I could have imagined. Realizing that I was about to face significant financial loss nearly caused me to lose control because it felt incredibly unfair. However, I was fully aware that I was finished with her and had no intention of ever touching her again. What I saw disgusted me, but it was mostly my wife's actions that repulsed me. In my perception, she had gone from being a kind, devoted spouse to someone I couldn't recognize within just 15 minutes. Neither of them moved, and I was fairly certain they were both passed out due to alcohol. With the house destined for sale, I suddenly didn't care about any potential damage to the home I had worked so hard to build. I retrieved my .45 thing and stared at both of them betraying me in my own bed. For a brief moment, I considered shooting her, understanding that the bullets would likely go through her and hit him as well. However, I quickly snapped out of that thought and realized they weren't worth risking my own life and freedom for. Despite the pain I was experiencing, I recognized that I might still want to continue living beyond this situation. So, I pulled back the hammer of my tool, raised it into the air, aiming toward my upper right, and fired off 2 rounds into the ceiling. Both of them immediately woke up. She was attempting to push herself away from him and turn around. He forcefully shoved her off him and onto the floor, and that's when his gaze met mine. His eyes held a look of intense fear, but compared to the sheer terror in my wife's eyes, he seemed relatively composed. She began to try to explain that it wasn't what it appeared to be, prompting me to fire a shot through the closet door. Her attempts to speak ceased abruptly, while he remained silent. They were both sitting on opposite sides of the bed, covered by the sheet pulled up to their necks. I questioned the guy about his identity, and he said his name was Marcus. Turning to my wife, I inquired about their connection, and she revealed he owned his own real estate business. Then I asked how long the affair had been happening, as I had been completely unaware of my wife's infidelity. Shockingly, she had the audacity to claim it was the first and only time they had been together intimately. In response, I fired 2 shots into the headboard of the bed between them. Both of them started crying and pleading for me to stop, so I repeated my question. Surprisingly, Marcus confessed that it had been going on for 6 months. While it angered me, at least I finally had the truth. Tears streaming down her face, I asked my wife when she had stopped loving me. Through sobs, she dishonestly insisted that she had never stopped loving me. In my frustration, I fired 2 rounds into the bathroom on her side of the bed, causing the mirror to shatter and glass to scatter across the counter and floor. I bluntly told her she was a deceitful and worthless person, and that I was through with her lies. Despite her obvious panic attack, I was indifferent at the moment. I directed my question to the guy, asking if he was married. He admitted that he was. I then inquired if he had children who would miss him, and after a pause, he admitted he had 2 kids. I expressed my gratitude for revealing my wife's true character before we had children together. However, I questioned whether having an affair with a cheating individual was worth losing his family over. He pleaded with me not to inform his wife. I silenced him, as she was currently facing about a 50% chance of becoming a widow. For the following 15 minutes, I paced at the end of the bed, weapon in hand, attempting to think through the situation. I recognized that holding them against their will could be seen as a hostage situation, and that I would eventually have to release them. I instructed my wife to get up and retrieve her car keys. She got up from the bed and started to pick up her clothes from the floor to put them back on. I told her to halt, saying clothes were unnecessary, and repeated my demand for the keys. She walked down the hallway and returned with her keys, handing them to me while still in tears. I removed the house key and informed her she wouldn't need it anymore. Though she likely wanted to argue about the legality of that action, a .45 tool tends to render legal debates irrelevant. Next, I instructed Marcus to stand up, take out his keys and wallet from his pants, and follow me. I led him outside to his car, where I repeatedly punched him in the face until his nose and mouth were bleeding. After moving my car so he could access his SUV, I retrieved his keys, told him to stand, and explained his options. He could go home right then and confess everything to his wife, or I would contact her within 48 hours with the evidence of his infidelity that I had recorded. I also made it clear that he had 40 seconds to leave my property, or else the authorities would be involved. His state of undress seemed like a minor concern at the time. He got into his car and sped away before I reached the count of 25. Returning inside, my wife had put on a robe and was sitting at the kitchen table. I went to the bedroom, picked up her cell phone, and brought it to her in the kitchen. I asked if she wanted to call her parents or her sister to pick her up, but she declined. I even offered to call the police, but she declined again. She probably thought we would have a discussion to clear the air, so she said no. She began to explain herself, but I cut her off and firmly told her that, as far as I was concerned, our relationship was over forever. I told her that our home wasn't her place anymore, and she should leave and drive anywhere except here. I explained that all the love I had for her was gone after what she did, and there wouldn't be another chance. She started apologizing, crying, and begging. I fired 2 shots into the double oven and 1 into the fridge, and finally, there was quiet. It's an advantage when your nearest neighbor is more than 2 miles away. At that moment, I let her know that I didn't care if I lived or died, and her actions had completely shattered me. I also mentioned that any love I had for her turned to hatred the instant I saw her with Marcus, unclothed. If I had the power, I would have erased her from existence and my memory right then. I told her that I was struggling to control my intense disgust towards her. I suggested that it would be best for her to go to the garage, get in her car, and never return. With tears, she went to the garage, drove away, and that was about 5 hours ago. Recognizing that I might have broken a law or two with my reaction, I didn't want to deal with any police if they showed up. I turned off everything, locked the doors, and left in my car again. My dad owns a fishing cabin that he and his friends use fairly often. I drove there and used the hidden spare key to get inside. It was too early to call anyone when I arrived. I decided I needed a drink and have consumed about 1/4 of my father's Balvenie scotch. Dad won't be happy about that until I explain what my wife did. Besides, I'm pretty sure it's the bottle I bought him for his birthday last month. I'm really unsure about what steps to take next. I've been going through posts here on Reddit and other subreddits in search of solutions. However, most of them are about people trying to figure out if their spouse is being unfaithful. In my case, I already know the truth. Well, I know enough of the truth that I want to know. The reasons for the infidelity seem empty. Some other posts suggest strategies to win back a cheating partner. I can't fathom why anyone would want to reconcile with a spouse who cheated. But what I want is a divorce. I want it to go in my favor, and to be done as quickly as possible. She shouldn't have the option to choose me again. I'm a human being, not some prize at a carnival. I want to remove her from my life and erase any memory of her. I never want to see or hear from her again. Can lawyers handle everything? I have the money to start the process. What I lack is the time, energy, and patience to deal with this nonsense. 8. Frustrating years of marriage seem like a waste. Those 8 years now feel like one big deception, especially after witnessing what I did. How can I trust anything she's ever told me? 8 years of my life seem squandered on a deceitful person. Part of me even wishes I had confronted them both and indeed my own life. But that might just be the effect of the scotch I've been drinking. It's astonishing that I need to get tested for diseases just to be sure that this situation didn't give me anything. In fact, I realize I've wasted a decade on her when I think about it. Her actions have made my life feel invalid, and the time spent with her seems worthless. The only lesson I'm taking from this marriage is that honesty and loyalty seem to be things of the past. The only thing that seems truly everlasting in relationships now is herpes. That's something that truly lasts. Love and marriage appear to be built on falsehoods. I feel really, really low at the moment. Some people might already see me as a primitive person for responding with threats. I also know that some will criticize me for using one of my tools. I didn't shoot anyone, and the bed sheets were already dirty before I fired a shot. If bullet holes make the house sell for a bit less, I can accept that. I just can't handle this situation. Part of me wants to give up and end everything. The life I had is over, and even if I wanted to, it won't come back. People might say I avoided a difficult situation by not having kids with my wife and finding out she's unfaithful, but I don't feel that way now. I go from crying uncontrollably to intense anger that I've never experienced before. I have to confront this challenge or just end everything. Right now, the second option seems better. Maybe if I faint and get some sleep, things won't seem as awful. But I doubt it. The weather forecast indicates that the conditions will improve enough to work in a few days, so I'll need to be on a plane the day before. I don't like the area we're working in for various reasons. However, a part of me wants to remain there after the job is done and not return. Another part of me wants to figure out where I should start anew if I decide to start over at all. How do I choose a lawyer? Is there an online rating system for legal help on Yelp or some other website? I really dislike lawyers. They belong to one of the least respected professions. Now, I have to find the most assertive lawyer I can find. I apologize for the long text. Writing it didn't provide the relief I was hoping for. Unfortunately, this pain won't go away anytime soon. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. What's the purpose of any action? The person I was wholeheartedly devoted to is gone forever. And tonight I discovered that they never truly existed. I wasn't flawless, but I was loyal. I never acted in hurtful ways. She had never heard me raise my voice until tonight. I was a good husband. I enjoyed being married and staying faithful. However, for every good man out there, there's some 403 just waiting to manipulate him. I'm fed up with this life, fed up with my soon-to-be ex-wife, and fed up with relationships in general. My thoughts are becoming jumbled now. I suppose I'll go to bed. Tomorrow, when I wake up, I'll probably call my parents and explain what happened. I'm in shock, and I've never experienced this level of heartache before. Maybe I'll start feeling better tomorrow. Update. I honestly can't say if things could have turned out much worse for me after posting, even if I had intentionally tried to make it worse. Some people will likely argue that my actions went too far or were extreme. It appears that the legal system agrees with those individuals. This update will bring satisfaction to those who criticize the use of tools. So, let me address this matter first, so that those people can find joy in the situation I'm dealing with. I got arrested for making threats, committing a serious crime, using a dangerous weapon, and a few lesser offenses, though the specific felonies don't really matter. If I'm found guilty of the felonies, even without a prior criminal record, I could potentially face more than 25 years in prison. While it's unlikely that I'll receive such a lengthy sentence, it's within the realm of possibility. Ironically, if I had actually shot Marcus and/or my wife in a fit of anger, I might be looking at a shorter sentence. While I was writing my initial post, it seems Marcus chose to confess to the police rather than to his wife. He admitted to being involved with a married woman. Strangely, he managed to gain some sympathy from the police. The deputy who took his statements was one of the officers who arrested me the following day. The arrest went smoothly as I didn't resist at all. Looking back, I think Marcus having me charged was a preemptive move. The judge during my arraignment prohibited me from contacting Marcus or any of his family members. Consequently, I haven't reached out to his wife in any manner. However, by getting me arrested, Marcus achieved a couple of other objectives. I let my workplace know about the charges, which meant I couldn't leave the state. They went into a state of panic because my job requires special skills. It took them 2 weeks to find someone with similar training and experience, and now I'm searching for a new job. This definitely complicated things when it came to finding lawyers. Before I could even consider hiring a divorce attorney, I had to prioritize finding a defense attorney. I was handed divorce papers 2 days ago. It's clear that my wife intends to take everything she can from me. However, we haven't spoken since that night. She's reached out through calls and texts, but I haven't read, replied, or reacted to any of it. I really despise her. I'll never be able to get past this. Moving on seems impossible. I won't be getting anything close to my old life back. I've been staying with my parents, who have been incredibly supportive and wonderful. But with the mess I've created, there isn't much anyone can say. Right now, everyone is preoccupied with the criminal charges I'm facing and the fear of going to jail. The fact that I've lost my wife and my future has been temporarily overshadowed, even after receiving divorce papers. I've overheard my mom crying in private. This situation is breaking my parents' hearts, too. They shouldn't have to worry that their son might end up behind bars. They should be enjoying their retirement and their lives. I guess I haven't just ruined my own life, but I'm convinced someone has utterly wrecked mine. I spend most days locked up in my childhood room, waiting for things to get even worse. I have a feeling that my wife might be supporting Marcus, or cooperating with the police against me in court. She's definitely not standing in anyone's way, that's certain. Once again, I haven't spoken to her, so I'm clueless about what's going on in her mind. But if she despises me, for reasons I'm unaware of, as much as I despise her, I suppose she's just giving me what I deserve. I'm sorry I can't provide a more positive update. Those who usually advocate for leaving and getting a divorce will be pleased to know that's exactly what's happening, no matter the challenges. I'm just uncertain whether I'll be doing it as a free man or from behind bars, serving my sentence. I was chatting with my cousin the other night, and he mentioned something about when I eventually start dating again. He didn't mean anything harmful, but it hit me in an indescribable way. It's like forgetting what my wife did to me and ever trusting any woman again. I haven't even begun to consider that. And then it hit me. If things go really bad, my next romantic encounter could be with another man named Jerome. My lawyer is actually focused on winning my case, not just keeping me out of jail. I'm grateful for that, as that's what needs to happen. However, I can't handle going to prison. Even if I'm convicted without being jailed, my career is ruined. But prison is something I can't endure. I've been in shock since the moment I turned on the lights and saw my wife lying unclothed with another man. This entire ordeal keeps getting more and more nightmarish. It's like I'm watching a movie that I can't turn off, even though I'm utterly disgusted. What I had in mind seemed much more coherent than how it appears in writing. However, given the situation, that's the best I could manage. My life is incredibly difficult at the moment, and I can attribute all of it to the act of cheating. Edit. There are various replies in the comments addressing questions and remarks. I don't have the energy to retype all of that multiple times. Someone will give an update in a month or two. If it ends up being me, that's wonderful. If not, the situation has taken a turn for the worse and continues to worsen. Update. I'll attempt to explain what's been going on since my last update, even though I might use incorrect legal terms and words in the process. From what I was told, there's a federal law that requires both the prosecution and the defense to present all evidence and potential witnesses before a trial. My lawyer had a good reason for keeping the video of my ex-wife and Marcus cheating hidden. The situation wasn't exactly like a trial. It was more of a hearing, but there was a judge overseeing it. My lawyer presented a USB drive as evidence, although the actual video was on a tablet. To make a long story short, Marcus either didn't know that I had proof, or he forgot that I had mentioned it to him. I did remember putting my phone away after recording them before I grabbed my tool. So, neither he nor my wife saw the phone. Marcus refused to testify, and as a result, the charges were dismissed. His father is a retired judge, and Marcus himself is a business owner. He couldn't afford to have that video entered as evidence and made public in a trial associated with his name. So, I really managed to avoid a serious problem. My lawyer is quite confident that she could have convinced a jury to find me not guilty, but having no charges or trial at all is even better. Marcus left the courtroom before I was allowed to leave. As soon as I turned on my phone, I received notifications for missed texts and calls from an unknown number that I assumed was my wife. I didn't respond to anything because I didn't read or listen to any of it. However, I was convinced that she had discovered I had video evidence. She was either trying to make amends or prepare for a fight. Her lawyer could talk to mine. And no, I still haven't communicated with her in any way whatsoever. The instant I witnessed her cheating, she became non-existent to me. If I want to speak to someone who's not around, I'll hold a seance. I have a highly regarded divorce attorney, and he was the first person I attempted to call once the charges were dropped. Clearly, the footage will be necessary in divorce court. So, I can't just show it to Marcus's wife. At least not right now. I'd assume she might hear about it through rumors, but who knows. He probably took some precautionary measures and informed his wife about something just in case. However, I highly doubt he made a full confession. My parents were relieved. I phoned them during their vacation to share the unexpectedly good news. All of us anticipated the case to go to trial. Nobody truly anticipated that hearing would put an end to the criminal side of things. Now my focus shifts to the divorce, and my lawyer has received my wife's filed divorce documents. It's not going to be the easy situation my soon-to-be ex-wife thought it would be. At this moment, she's residing in the house. This places me in a disadvantageous position, but my lawyer hopes to counteract that with some submitted paperwork. I absolutely do not want to move back into that house. After witnessing what I saw, I could never imagine living there again. Furthermore, I've heard it needs repairs and new appliances. Frankly, I don't want her to have it either. Given the soaring housing prices, I want the house and the land to be sold outright. She shouldn't receive it, especially since she's the one who caused the marriage to break apart. If she wanted to continue living there, she should have been more faithful. Actions come with consequences, and if she believes some fleeting affair is worth losing a house, she probably shouldn't be involved in real estate. Regarding work, I plan to use the upcoming week to either reclaim my old job or find a new one. I don't want to displace anyone from their job, particularly in such a specialized field. However, I now have to spend money on lawyers for things I never intended to. I'm aware that whoever replaced me couldn't have the same experience and knowledge as I do, nor know the team as well. I don't think I'll be without a job for very long, regardless of the outcome. It's surprising to hear myself say this, but I'll be relieved to return to work. The past few months haven't felt like a vacation. Right now, I just need something else to focus on aside from the divorce. I want to attempt to put that messed up night out of my mind. I'm probably fortunate I'm still alive, and I'm very fortunate I'm not incarcerated. However, this entire situation just angers me. It's not just about the money wasted on legal fees. It's the time that's been squandered, the lies hidden behind words I once believed. The deceit. I never truly knew her. It wasn't even possible. It's disturbing to think that I acted foolishly over someone I didn't even understand. I mean, if you want to lose your temper and confront someone for a deserving, loyal, loving woman, go for it. But to go completely crazy over someone who lied and never cared? Not worth a single punch, and definitely not worth resorting to violent actions. Learn from my error. It's just not worth it. However, it would be great if people could simply be truthful with themselves and others. My soon-to-be ex-wife keeps trying to reach out and communicate. The time for that was before she gave herself to another man. I want to make a fresh start somewhere not too distant from my parents, but far enough away to avoid running into my soon-to-be ex-wife or her affair partner. I'm not a fan of big cities, but small towns have their own drawbacks. I used to earn good money. Well, I mean, I did and will again. The idea of beginning anew with everything after the tumultuous last couple of months is quite appealing. I'm just struggling to think of a place I'd want to live. I only know I don't want to stay here. I'm so grateful we didn't have kids. Otherwise, this experience would be much worse. It's a relief to be able to cut ties and move on without a child forever linking us. And I do adore children. I hope to have my own someday. But I'm thankful that I didn't have any with a woman who could treat me like this. At the very least, I'm aware that I can rebuild a life and a career again. Right now, I'm feeling quite down about this thing we call life. However, the knowledge that I possess freedom and opportunities gives me a sense of hope. I can move beyond her, considering her a major error in my life, a massive tragedy. I'm well aware that I need therapy after everything I've been through and the choices I made. I've got an appointment set up in 2 weeks to start individual counseling. I'm anticipating some criticism for my anger problems, but I need to hear it. I also need someone to assist me in piecing my life back together after everything fell apart. I'm grateful for the advice I've received here. I appreciate the kind words and even the critical comments. I acknowledge that what I did was messed up. I can only work on improving myself moving forward. I can't alter who I used to be in the past. Update. I've spent several days contemplating how to even start explaining the current situation and where things stand. I felt it was necessary to provide an update to those who have offered valuable advice since my mistake. However, writing out all the details and drama of what has occurred would take far too much time. Our lawyers started communicating. The other side, representing my soon-to-be ex-wife, kept requesting that she and I talk, and my response was consistently no. Our legal team attempted to initiate negotiations and get the process moving from our end. Whenever the topic of the house and property came up, my lawyer felt they were acting oddly or nervously, though I'm not exactly sure what that means. Still, they insisted on meeting face-to-face and having a conversation, claiming it was crucial for our individual or joint futures moving forward. My inclination was to decline. However, my lawyer essentially told me that I would eventually have to face her in court, and it would be wise to meet. They knew we had evidence of infidelity and what it entailed, although they hadn't seen it yet. My lawyer wanted to understand their exact arguments and approach. I personally didn't want to see her or hear her voice. Unfortunately, they weren't open to a group text, so we ended up meeting in person. We gathered in a conference room at my lawyer's office. I was already seated when my wife and her lawyer entered. I intended to show a mix of hatred and strong disgust in my gaze. However, she started crying and walked toward me, so it seems my plan didn't work. I instructed her to step back, which only made her cry even more. I started moving away from her to put some distance between us, which eventually stopped her from approaching. I won't go into the details, but I essentially used the harshest language imaginable to berate her. Prior to that fateful night, she had never heard me raise my voice at her. Before that day in the conference room, I had never uttered a curse word at her, not even during that dreadful night. I unleashed all my feelings, every awful thought I had about her, every terrible belief I held, and every ill wish I had for her. Her lawyer seemed very surprised, while mine was somewhat taken aback, but I had warned him to expect it when we agreed to the meeting. Finally, my wife understood that I meant every word I said, and that I truly hated her for what she had done to us, and to me. Even before the meeting officially began, we needed a 30-minute break to calm down. When we eventually sat down to talk, my wife had a request to speak to me without interruptions. I can't provide an exact account of her words if I tried, so I won't attempt to. She began by expressing profound sorrow for everything that had unfolded. She wished I would communicate with her, or respond to her texts, but she acknowledged that wasn't likely after my earlier outburst. Then she went directly into discussing our owned land, and its potential value in the near future. Apparently, a widely known company, that I won't name, might be interested in purchasing a substantial amount of land for construction purposes. However, this deal hinges on convincing other landowners to sell as well. We're talking about a significant acreage that the company wants to acquire. Our land falls within a specific area, a certain distance from a power station, major highway, airport, water source, and so on. It meets all their criteria. She then mentioned that we really need to talk about this land because she can't sell it without my agreement. I stopped her right then. I told her, "You would have been able to if I had gone to jail, right?" I wasn't asking a question. I could tell the answer from her lawyer's face. Later, she came out and said she advised Marcus not to press charges. I wanted to hit someone, but I can't hit a woman, and my lawyer would sue me. I didn't care that they kept talking after that night, but it still made me angry. She explained that they needed to stay in touch because he was the one responsible for the attempted sale. He could make a lot of money as the agent, and we could make even more as the owners. He has connections in government and real estate due to his parents' careers. When he saw the chance to get rid of me, he took it. He never appeared without clothes. He had outfits in his car, though I didn't know that. The police heard a very different version of what happened, but I'm not surprised. When I got charged, my wife said she wouldn't testify, but she couldn't get me to talk to her. She said she was happy the charges were dismissed. That's when I asked if she was happy before she found out I had recorded her and Marcus. She didn't reply. I showed her and her lawyer the footage I had taken by handing them my phone. My lawyer probably wasn't thrilled about me sharing it, but they were aware it existed, and I couldn't share it with anyone else yet. I informed her that Marcus's wife would eventually see the footage. That's when she mentioned that showing it would mean missing out on a lot of money I'd never earn through my job. I questioned if her reason for cheating was money and greed, and she surprisingly told me she cheated for us. The ensuing argument over that statement alone lasted more than an hour. We took a lunch break, and I went off to eat alone for an hour to get some distance from everyone. In a peculiar way, she had delivered good news to me, albeit wrapped in a negative situation. The lawyers were intrigued by the potential land sale. They knew we would learn about it eventually, and any immediate sale would require my approval, so they revealed the details. I have the option to cancel the entire deal if I decide to. It won't cost Marcus anything yet, but it would prevent me from making a substantial amount of money. However, my ability to earn significant money relies on my soon-to-be ex-wife's earnings as well. When I returned to the meeting, my wife essentially explained how this all began. She was participating in a Parade of Homes showcase. Marcus's agency was presenting 2 of the homes. Being familiar with each other through mutual connections, he approached her and inquired about our satisfaction with our current living situation. This led to him explaining that he knew an agent specialized in business and manufacturing sites. He detailed his idea, and it seems she saw an opportunity for profit. Marcus, a known figure in our area, could likely acquire local land more easily than a stranger. The collaborative efforts of the 2 agents could easily result in buying low and selling high. The deal depended on our involvement because of our land's location. Marcus and my wife engaged with locals and made plans. Eventually, their involvement became physical. So, 6 months before I learned my marriage was over, it had already ended. She claimed they got caught up in their excitement over the money, saying it meant nothing, that it was just an act. Though I wanted to unleash a stream of profanity, I tried to control my anger. I inquired if she and that despicable person had used protection. She mentioned they did initially, but because she was on birth control. 6 days, I exclaimed before I angrily called her a revolting, worthless person. She asked what I meant, so I went on to explain that male biological material can stay inside a woman for that long when they're close. Just thinking about what she put me through made me want to vomit. I asked her how she'd feel if I did a 180-degree turn. She attempted to defend herself by saying she took showers. I told her unless she could stand on her head and rinse herself out, she's disgusting. She wondered why I looked at her with such disgust. It's because I'm truly repulsed. Her actions were vile, and she subjected me to things I don't even want to think about. Not to mention what she did with her mouth. Marcus can have her. She's now tainted with his filth. I had to leave that situation behind. I was completely useless for the rest of the day. I went and got drunk for the first time since my post-wedding party at my dad's cabin. Part of me should be really happy. And I am. If things work out, I'll be able to fully pay my lawyers, repay my parents generously, and have a substantial amount of money to make a fresh start almost anywhere. But the ridiculous terms I had to agree to in order to secure that money make me feel even worse than my wife does. 3 darn lawyers crafted an agreement. Our 2 lawyers drafted a fair split for the divorce. We can't finalize the divorce until the land is sold or the deal falls apart, but the divorce is on its way, and my marriage is ending. I'm not in a rush to be single so I can marry again. I managed to cut ties with her quite well despite my unfortunate marital status. I don't have to see or talk to that immoral woman. However, it does bother me to have any connection with her in any form. I'm forbidden from contacting Marcus's wife. Not now or in the future. I can't show her parents or family the footage of my wife either. But she has already informed them about our divorce and admitted to having an affair. Either way, I got my job back and I'm starting next week at a new location. There's talk about sealing the charges Marcus brought against me from my record or something. But luckily, my record is clean, thank God. I'm still grappling with her explanations and her attitude regarding those explanations. Admittedly, I would be away for 10 days at a time. I never had any suspicions, and our bed life remained unchanged. I wish it hadn't, though. At least those poor folks in passionless relationships don't have to worry about swapping spit with a stranger. her kissing him, sticking her tongue in his mouth, or anywhere else. And then kissing me was like having a stranger spit in my mouth without my consent. But despicable cheaters like my wife and Marcus don't seem to get that. I can only imagine Marcus's bed life with his wife continued during the affair. I truly wonder if his wife has any idea that she unknowingly got close with my wife at some point. Knowing what I know now, I'm relieved that I punched Marcus in the mouth. Still glad I didn't end them or myself. But they both disgust me. People just disgust me now. How she could willingly be close with two different men is beyond my understanding. I had plenty of chances to cheat over the years, but I didn't, for various reasons, with loyalty being the most important. The thought of getting involved with someone I don't even know, who might have been with many others recently, is just crazy. Protection can fail, and it doesn't safeguard against everything. The only truly safe closeness is in a monogamous relationship. However, that only works when both individuals are faithful and haven't been involved with half the East Coast. I could have ended up in a much worse situation if things work out as planned. However, it's definitely going to be next year before things can start moving forward. I'll continue working like I have for years, but I won't have a place to call home. She'll stay in the house until it's sold and cover all the expenses. The house will be torn down after the sale, so no one will live there anymore. Most of our land is undeveloped, and moving the house miles away isn't feasible. When I need to sign paperwork, I'll be informed, and I'll show up to sign. Then our paths will diverge faster than my wife's willingness for a quick buck, and I can move forward with money in hand. But she destroyed me, and that's not fair. Just by being associated with me, she diminished my worth. She exposed truths I never wanted to know. It all goes back to the initial comment on my first post. I understand that not every woman is like my wife. I can vouch for the fact that not every guy is as awful as Marcus. But it's frustrating how those individuals mess things up for the rest of us. Why does it feel like two loyal people with a strong connection never meet? Almost every post here is about a nice guy and a great girl who got involved with a lousy person, and the fallout from that bad decision. Forget about trusting again. I can't even fathom wanting to trust anyone like that again. No one is worth what she put me through, and she certainly wasn't. It angers me that he's going to get away with it. I guess the world will have to wait and see if karma can catch up to him like it did with me. I don't really see a need for any more updates. She and I are headed for divorce. Money will be deposited into both my account and hers. After that, I'll have no contact with her ever again. That's the end result, no matter what. It's just suspended indefinitely. I want to express my gratitude to those who offered advice, told me to keep quiet, and encouraged me to get lawyers. To those who told me to stay strong, I appreciate your support. To those who suggested I harm myself, take a hike. I'll wait a day or two after posting to respond to a few comments, then I'll likely fade away. I wish healing for all who have experienced cheating, just as I wish it for myself. Until then. Final edit. This will be my last comment in this thread. I'm thankful for those who stood by me and for those who gave me a reality check. To the critics, I respect your right to your opinions, but I won't lose any sleep over them. As things stand now, a sale of the land in April or May seems likely. The industrial real estate agent has cleared many of the obstacles the company needed to overcome to buy the land. I don't know when construction will begin, but I'll have my money by then and won't care. So it's moving as quickly as possible. My wife occasionally calls or texts, but I don't answer, read, or respond. I don't think she cares about me, now or ever. Just giving her body to random people for their pleasure is something I can't comprehend. The fact that she treats her body that way disgusts me, and I want no part of her or anyone like her. It's saddening that I value her body more than she does. But, whatever. I've had enough of relationships anyway. There's absolutely no way I could bring a child into this world with any woman because of what my wife did. I do want to have kids, but after the land sale,